This is the last episode.
Hey guys, so weird things. Jesus is dead. No, I'm kidding. He is out of town and couldn't make it to record this one in time. So on the special, by the way, this episode 100, which is kind of crazy. 100 weeks of doing this in a row is blowing my mind that I was able to record a thing 100 weeks in a row and not fail at that at least. But in lieu of not having Jesus here, and Alonzo hates the podcast, I have a special guest co-host all the way from over the internets. We have Ian, manager at EloTalk. So say hello, Mang.
Hey, you didn't tell me this is the 100th episode. Yeah. I feel kind of weird now. Way to go. Way to just hide that information from me, man.
I forgot until I looked up at Pro Tools and I'm just like, oh, yeah, this is episode 100.
All right. Well, we're doing this, I guess.
We are doing it, man. So tell people about who you is and why you're here and why you're important.
Well, for starters, I'm not really important. I really don't do a whole lot. And I'm here because you had no other options.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, no, that's about it.
Talk about like where you are for like EloTalk and kind of what you do.
I work with EloTalk. We put out a lot of articles about all kinds of different stuff, games, movies, nerd culture, technology, all of the fun stuff that we interact with day to day. And I help with the podcast that we have over there, ELO Chat. It's fun. You guys should check it out if you want to.
Yes.
You've mentioned EloTalk a few times, and that's where I'm from. We make the contents for the interwebs.
Yeah. Cool. It's awesome. Thank you. Also, always thanking you guys for having us on your guys' thing, because I'm always, every time I release an episode, I'm always afraid of just like, oh, Ian, because Ian's kind of the guy that chooses whether we die or not, I feel like. And he's kind of like, oh.
I don't have that much power.
Well, close enough. Just every time I put an episode, I'm just like, oh, was this too wacky? Did I say something that was like way too much? I think No,
you're good. As long as you don't like try to like start a genocide, I think we're good. I think we're
I'll try my best.
So don't do that.
I'll try my best to not do that.
That's a no-no.
Yeah. Well, no promises. Nah.
Right. We'll see where it goes.
We'll see. I can't see into the future. So, man, there's a couple of things I want to talk about, because this week, at setting this podcast up, I was like, oh man, I have like nothing to talk about. Like, what are we going to talk about this week? And then I totally forgot of a crazy thing that happened with Patreon, which we'll get to probably at the end of this, because that's kind of a not fun topic. But before we get to the not fun topics, let's talk about the fun things. You like Dota, I assume, right?
I do like Dota.
Okay.
I like it a lot.
So there's a thing. There's a thing that happened with Dota 2. If you'd like to tell the peoples what's happening with the Dotas.
Yeah, coming up is the Dota 2 International Championship. It is, just as it sounds, International Championship for Dota 2. It's really big. They hold the, first, second, and I think third place prize for top prize pool for an esport. Crap tons of money. I think it's up to like $22 million for the prize pool right now. Really big event. A lot of excitement. It's ran by Valve, so it's actually by the company that creates Dota 2. And so they're able to do a lot of cool things, put on a really cool, exciting event. And it's a lot of fun. I'm excited for it. And so are a lot of people around the world.
Yeah. I don't think I'm one of those. I don't care about Dota at all. I don't care about MOBAs. I've realized this. I've tried so hard to like them. I just don't at all. I think they're frustrating. And man, I don't like the people that play those games.
I'm like the opposite. I've tried to not like them. Like, you know what? I should take a break for this. This isn't good for my health. Yeah. But no, it drags me in. It's like an addiction. It really is. Definitely not for everybody. I think esports as a whole is kind of like in a really bad place with the community. I mean, you're dealing with, an international community, and it's just, people from around the world don't see things the same way. They don't speak the same way. And so our interactions kind of come off amiss a lot of times. My common vernacular is different than someone in Europe's. And so I might say something that's really offensive and I don't understand it. Or they might say something where I'm like, whoa, why would you say that? But to them, that's more normal and it's not as big of a deal. And I think that people not understanding that then just perpetuates the problem and it all snowballs. And so it just becomes this toxic cesspool that we call esports. But for those of us addicted, it's a lot of fun. I like the challenge and I just can't get away from it.
Yeah. I haven't played much Dota. I've played a lot of League though.
Okay, now you just need to leave. That's it.
I don't like League. I hate the game.
I'll stick around.
Yeah. I don't like Dota either though. And he's gone. It's cool though to see the kind of response that these games get for esports just in general, because the kind of games that I think of esports are the Call of Doodles, because that's the games that I play mainly. So when I see like the kind of crowd that watches Dota and those type in the StarCrafts and those games, it blows my mind, man. There's a lot of people that watch that. You're one of them.
Yeah. I watch them, but I feel the same way about lots of other things. Like I don't get people who can watch football. I don't. Again, I get football. I used to play football in high school, but watching it, I'm like, how can you stand to watch this? Or NASCAR or golf? I don't get it, but a whole lot of people do.
Yeah, it's like, I guess there's something good about this. I don't know what it is, but
there's something people like.
That's how I feel about the Dota thing, which is funny. I'm just like, oh yeah, let's talk about Dota, a thing I care almost nothing about. That's yeah.
Well, so for me, I mean, I'm a Dota player, so I don't care much about League. But I know for me, I still appreciate that League exists because it does a lot for the community. It gets people interested in games and taking them a little bit more seriously. It's more than just kids in their basement nowadays. There's a lot of people that play games, a lot of adults, a lot of people who take it a little bit more seriously. And I think that even a game that I just do not like at all, as long as it's garnering attention for that community, I think that it's a positive thing, and it gets rid of some stereotypes and some negativity just towards the general audience of people who play games.
Yeah, I agree. That's I totally agree. I like seeing video games become, well, man, it's weird. I'm conflicted on how I feel about esports sometimes, because it's turned video games less and less away from what video games are for me. That when I was a wee bab, I used to play video games because they're fun and they're video games and they're silly and you press buttons and cool things happen. Nowadays, I feel like with the esports culture, I feel like it's kind of turned into like, nah, man, this is like a sport and we gotta like win and be good or else and win money. And it's like, that's not what a video game is.
Well, I mean, I think you're definitely right, but I see where you're saying negative. I see kind of a positive, because the way I look at it is games used to be hard. Remember playing the original Mega Man? Those games were difficult as crap.
Yeah, I love Mega Man. Mega Man X is one of the greatest games of all time.
Yeah, but amazingly difficult too. But the problem is that games like, between now and then, it kind of went through this lull where games were just easy. Look at Fable. Fable was a really fun game, but it was extremely easy. And Fable 2 was like the most disappointing boss that I've ever encountered. Just like press a button and it's done. I was like, what the hell is this? This isn't even a video game. And it just became so easy to play video games that I wasn't enjoying it. But now that people are getting more hardcore, like, yeah, esports. Well, now it's pushing developers to make a more challenging game because you're getting those more hardcore players into it. And so you start to see games like Dark Souls, which is an extremely difficult game.
Yes.
But it's much more akin to like, old school Mario and Mega Man, how, you would die. By the time you beat that game, you've died hundreds of times, similar to Dark Souls. And that's what I like. I like that throwback to the difficulty. And I think that comes from esports. People want that challenge and that difficulty.
I know. That makes sense. I guess that makes sense. That's actually a pretty good argument. Yeah. All right. I changed my mind.
I did it.
Yay. Well, that's the thing about like the esports thing. I always go back and forth because I don't really know how I feel about it always, because I think it's just like everything in the world. There are goods and there is bads. And I think esports is a good example of toxic and goodness. You have to, you can't deny that toxic. There's so much toxicity that happens in like esports everywhere, just because any type of competitive thing that involves money, you're going to get some garbage people in there.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I've tried to like not like esports and try to be like, okay, I'm done with Dota. I'm going to quit. No, that doesn't happen.
No.
The international comes back. I'm like, okay, I'm starting again. And it's just a cycle. But yeah, it's trying to get away from some of that toxicity that definitely exists and is like bad. Like you encounter people, you're like, wow, how are you alive right now when you haven't pissed off someone that has, like offed you because of the crap you're saying?
Yeah.
Like,
it's funny that
it is insane.
I found more vitriol in the League community than I did in the Call of Duty community, which blows my mind. Because I feel like in the Call of Duty community, the kind of hatred that was spewed was like, it was joking almost. It wasn't serious, right? Like it was, I mean, some of it was serious, but I think most of it was more of just like
trolls.
Yeah, just trolly and shitposty. But the League type of stuff, I don't know if does this happen in Dota 2? Like also because in League, it's definitely like, no, like you go mid or else we will all commutatively kick you. It's just like, that's not fun. I want to go freaking up. I don't want to go mid.
Yeah, except like it's like that, but also you add in like just a crap ton of racism and xenophobia. And
sweet. All of my favorite things.
It's the bottom barrel of people. It is horrendous. Like honestly, you get on a team and you'll have people that they speak English. I don't speak any other languages, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's other people that speak English, I'm like, I can communicate with this person. You feel good. I'm gonna stun him, and then you go in and you get a kill. And like, this feels good. This is cooperation and teamwork in a teamwork game that generally never happens. So it's exciting when it happens. But then someone speeches like they speak up and they're speaking Portuguese, and then the guy goes on like this super racist tirade. And you're like, whoa! Well, we were having fun until that started, all because he speaks a different language, and it's depressing.
That's really funny, actually. And not in a good way, but I did not expect that.
It's funny in a bad way.
Yeah. I did not expect that from Dota. Cause I always thought that Dota 2 and just the Dota stuff was always like a nicer version of League. I never really dipped my toe in, but never any farther than that. So I'd always just assumed it was just like Disney League, but no, I guess not.
No. I've heard people say like, "Oh, League is so toxic," and I've played a game here and there to try to get a feel for it and see if I like it. Just there's mechanics that I don't like, but I've tried it, and they're like, "Oh, we gotta be careful. The community is so toxic." And I get in there like, "Wow, this is nice. This is refreshing. You should go check out Dota if you want to encounter toxicity."
That's funny. Yeah. There's not really much else I can contribute to the Dota thing. Do you want to say anything else before we move on to something else about the?
I mean, if you're a person who is interested in esports, Dota 2 is one of the biggest. They have really huge prize pools. They don't have as many people to play as League, but the tournaments are a lot bigger. So there's a lot of excitement. There's lots of coverage. If esports are your thing, don't jump in thinking that you're going to be this super awesome badass who's going to win lots of games. You need to do a lot of research and get ready for some really venomous people.
Yeah, you got to get good, kid.
You got to get good, and you got to have a thick skin and just learn to ignore people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will rot from the inside.
Well, that's fun. Speaking of rotting from the inside and outside, Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones is one of the greatest shows of all time. Now, I didn't even ask you this. Are you caught up? You've watched the last 2 episodes, right? You're excited for tonight's episode, or?
Okay, so I liked Game of Thrones. Until last season.
Last
season. Okay, so last season was season 5, right?
Nope, season 6.
Last season, okay, season 6. So last season I thought was a wash because every episode was lame as crap until the last like 2 minutes of every episode. And then the last episode and a half were exciting. The rest of it was just, it wasn't very good. It wasn't even that much like character development. It was just kind of trudging along and wasn't that fantastic. Things were predictable. And so I didn't like it. And so, out of 6 seasons, I did not like one. That's 4 out of 5 stars as a whole for the show. And it was so bad that I only recently kicked up. I'm like halfway, maybe a fourth of the way through the first episode of the new season because it's just so, I was so disappointed. I was so let down by last season.
Dang. That makes me sad inside. All right. So we'll try to talk about...
It's payback for the Disturbed conversation last episode because that made me sad inside. That's what you get.
Yeah, we'll get it. We'll get to that if you really are that butthurt about it. But so okay, we'll try to talk about this without spoiling anything. Season 6. Okay, so I've watched Game of Thrones now 4 times, except for season 6. I've seen season 6 only the once. Because by the time season 6 came out, I rewatched all of Game of Thrones 3 times. And then this 4th time, I've been rewatching Game of Thrones. I'm up through season 5, like halfway through. And I wasn't able to finish season 5 and 6 before this new season 7 came out. So I guess I can't fully say I've watched the whole show 4 times, but I mean, I've rewatched season 1 through 5 for sure 3 times, and then some. So I like the show a lot. I haven't read. I pretty much read the first book. Like I was reading the audiobook and I had like 10 hours left, which is nothing because that book's crazy long. It was like less than 10 hours, and I think the whole thing's like 35. So I was like 8 or 9 hours left. So I was almost done with the book, kind of. And then I stopped for some reason. But I know a lot about the book.
The book isn't that great?
No, the book's good. It's just I don't know. I think it's because I started reading another thing, the Gulag Archipelago, which is 2,700 pages long, and hurts to read because it's very not fun, but it's amazing at the same. It's pretty much just talking about Russian gulags and how horrible it was. It's Alexander Solzhenitsyn yelling for 2,700 pages. So that's fun. I started reading that and just like, I'd rather read this instead of Game of Thrones. But I do know a lot about the books.
I couldn't do the book.
For Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I am not a fan of J.R.R. Martin's writing style. I think that I can't read his books. I can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, is it the 700 pages of just nothing? Because there's a lot of that where it's just talking about food forever.
He talks about things that don't matter. And he the way that he presents things is bad. He'll talk about like, oh, this family and list like, all these different family members of this family and this that they did, and then not reference that for, hundreds of pages, if not entire books later. And it's going, well, you just fed me a bunch of, like, that's not a good way to present information. He does it really poorly. Mm-hmm. And then you hear all this crap about food or, he sets up the scene, but he takes way too long to do it. I'm just not a fan of the writing style. He doesn't present it in a way that makes it for easy digestion, which in my opinion, entertainment should be more easily digestible.
Yeah.
It could still have all the twists and turns and, mind bending type of things that could happen, but it just shouldn't be so droll.
Yeah. The books kind of have that, or at least, the book kind of has that problem a little bit. So anyway, the point I was making with everything is I've watched a lot of Game of Thrones. I know a lot about the book just from like Reddit and YouTube theories and stuff. So I know the series fairly well. Season 5 is the worst season of Game of Thrones. That's just what it is. Season 6 is amazing compared to season 5. Because season 5 had a whole arc for the Sand Snakes that was almost useless. Almost. It ended very importantly, but it dragged on for so long and involved things that no one cared about and had things like the whole motivation of the Sand Snakes was pretty much just like, we've been ruled by men forever. We don't want to rule, but we don't want men to rule. So let's just have anarchy. And it's like, what? This is Game of Thrones. Like, I don't care about anarchy. Like, I cared about like who rules, and that's not what you want. So get out of here.
Yeah. Well, so I think that part of the problem that it is Game of Thrones has so much action that sometimes like that's what you want. You want it to just be this like avoid some of like the political, just garbage like that. Like I don't want to deal with, the sand snakes and all their crap. Sometimes I just want to watch, people hack each other up and have this big old war and all the fighting and backstabbing and all the action. Like a Michael Bay film is, kind of what you're expecting with Game of Thrones. And so then when you're in that mood and then they just kind of kill it with reverting back to things you don't really care about and in the end doesn't really matter anyways, it's a bummer.
Yeah, and that's what season 5 was. Season 6 had it's really hard to talk about season 6 without spoiling anything, but like there's a lot that happened though. Like the story moved forward, right? Season 5, the story didn't really move forward. It kind of stayed the same and then moved forward towards the end. And it's almost like it moved into season 6. Like it was just like, all right, this is just prep for what season 6, how awesome season 6 is gonna be. And then season 6 comes, is just like, all right, here we go. Now we're starting to move.
Yeah, I mean, there was some stuff in season 5, like a lot more to do with Bran and stuff.
Yeah,
that moved that progression along.
Season 6 was the stuff with Bran. Bran wasn't in season 5 at all.
Wasn't he? Isn't that how he got to the Birdman?
The Tree Man, the three-eyed raven?
Yeah. Yes.
No. Season 5 had none. I don't remember seeing Bran at all in season 5. Season 6 was... Season 4 had a lot of Bran getting to the tree boy. And then season 6 is him learning everything. Learning R plus L equals J, which I won't say what it is, but that's what that is.
Yeah.
That's what season 6 is.
Maybe that's my problem. Because when I watched it, I watched like season 1 through 6 completely, like binge watched the crap out of it. And so, having watched all of that, it all kind of blends together. So I kind of like, forget what season each thing happens, except for the most recent season, because I caught those episode by episode. But I was I was just so disappointed leading into the season that then that season also disappointed me. Because I don't know if you agree, but it seems to me and to my friends that really nothing happened in each episode until the very end of each episode, when they'd have like a big thing that happens and pushes the story. It was always like last 2 to 5 minutes.
You know what it is? I think that's kind of true, right? But in a way, like I don't think nothing happened. I think a lot did happen, but it's not. I think it was kind of story, like slower character story thing than it was move it along. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain this. Yeah, I can't really explain this very well. Besides, I know what you mean. I disagree in a way, because I still think that those stories that happened moved it along, but it definitely each episode ramped up at the end for sure.
Yes,
but I maybe you're thinking because the ending was so good of each episode that you got bored of the beginnings, because the ending was just
maybe
so good.
That could be it. Like, all right, just get to the last 5 minutes, because that's when exciting stuff is going to happen.
Yeah, it's like trying to eat
always like action.
It's like trying to eat a cake.
That's interesting.
It's like trying to eat a cake middle out, where it's just like, yeah, the middle's good, but I just want to get to the frosting, man.
Yeah,
like that's it's still a cake and it's still great, but you want to just get to the frosting.
It could have been. I don't know. I was like I said, I was so unimpressed that I just earlier today was like, you know what? Maybe I'm going to start up episode 1 of this new season.
Yeah, you should see this new season. All right, so we're recording this on Sunday.
So far, yes. So there's going to be one tonight. And so far, like I watched like a fourth to a half the first episode. I'm like, wow, stuff's happening right away. There's a lot of things going on.
Well, Red Wedding 2.0 happened in the first episode.
Yeah, like before the intro even.
Yeah.
Like that was a way to start off a season.
Yeah, man.
They should have done that last season so that I would be entertained.
Yeah. I understand.
But I mean, as a whole, it's a good show. It's just not my favorite show.
Wow, that's amazing. Game of Thrones is just one of the greatest shows ever. And
See, I don't know. I'm more excited about like Stranger Things.
I'm excited for Stranger Things, and I'm not like that excited for Stranger. Like I like the first season a lot, but not as much as Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones.
So we're just like reversed.
I guess so. Well, Game of Thrones is just such a vast and deep thing, and they're doing things that they're finally starting. Things are starting to pay off, and characters are starting to meet up, and the story's really moving ahead right now, like way more than it ever has. And like payoffs are happening finally, like literally like seasons long payoffs is finally happening. And
yeah,
that's why I'm way more excited for Game of Thrones than freaking Stranger Things, because Stranger Things was just like, oh, season 2 of the thing. I didn't wait that long. It just came, wait like a year, whatever, for a thing. Game of Thrones, it's kind of been going on for a long time. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
All right. Why are you mad at me?
I'll end up watching them both anyways.
Huh?
I'll end up watching them both anyways. So.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Doesn't really matter.
There's a lot of things out there, and a lot of it's good, and a lot of it's not good. Like Disturbed, not good.
Oh, yeah. There's be fighting words right there.
Fight me, bro. Why are you hating me on my hate for Disturbed? I don't hate Disturbed. This is a funny thing. Before we even go with this, yeah, I don't hate Disturbed. I think that I liked the music when I was in middle school, and then I realized how boring it is.
It's definitely consistent.
Metallica's. Metallica. Megadeth is consistent, but Megadeth is good. That's the thing. Like Megadeth is a good example of consistency that constantly just is good. And I don't get
that's
bored.
How I feel about Disturbed. And then you're praising Metallica, and I'm like, oh, it's one of the I do not like that band at all. Cannot stand Metallica.
Well, Metallica is one of the greatest metal bands of all time, but you can be wrong. That's fine.
Yeah, no, it was okay. I'll listen to Pantera instead of Metallica, because they're pretty comparable as to the place that they hold. And if you want Metallica in the mainstream pandering media, then you can go ahead and listen to more Metallica.
It's funny, man, because I'm so not I love Metallica. It's one of my favorite bands of all time, but I don't like my favorite genre of metal is late 70s thrash metal, like pre-Metallica, Budgie, Diamond Head, that kind of stuff. Black Sabbath I like a lot, and Judas Priest before.
Sound like the opposite.
80s.
Because the metal used to be where it was lots of like higher pitched singing and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you have like the route that Pantera took, and I think a lot of inspiration came from that. And Disturbed.
Pantera. Phil Anselmo have you listened to Cowboys from LA? Or freaking like, there's so much high pitched singing that Phil Anselmo does. Like, what are you talking about?
As a whole, their singing style is much deeper. This
is definitely a wider range.
Yeah. And that's just like, that's where I like my music to sit. I like Disturbed because of that. And it's not popular. Like, I get it. Metallica is humongous because that's what people like. I just always like the stuff that people didn't like.
So you're a hipster.
When I listen to your podcast and you're dissing on it, I'm like, man, that's it. I'm going to have some words with this guy.
Look, man, Disturbed. I put Disturbed in the same. So I consider Disturbed a new metal band, like NU metal, like old Linkin Park, Trapped, Limp Bizkit, Rage Against the Machine. Like,
yeah,
I consider Disturbed a new metal band, and Disturbed is definitely the most, I think, the highest quality new metal band. I can say that. I listened to a lot of new metal back in when I was a wee child. All those bands that I just mentioned. I listened to Papa Roach, man. I listened to Trapped. I listened to these things. I regret it, but I did. And Disturbed, I always thought Disturbed was definitely the most well-produced one out of them all. But after a while, that's the thing that bored me, was the fact that it was well-produced.
Yeah. I like that's part of what I like. I like how they're consistent and well-produced, and they sound the same.
Yeah.
Like, so I didn't get bored. I guess that's the difference. I didn't get bored. And so I still like that style, and bands that kind of deviated with a very similar style, new metal bands like Five Finger Death Punch and those
Five
kind
Finger
of
Death Punch is
bands.
not a new metal band. Five Finger Death Punch is like alternative industrial.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Five Finger Death Punch it is way worse, I think.
Way worse. You're killing me.
They're so boring.
You're killing me.
They're so boring.
I feel physical pain right now. Physical pain.
That's probably because you're listening to Five Finger Death Punch.
My ears are bleeding.
Yeah, it's so bad. Like the kind of modern metal I like is Periphery's the perfect example of like, I think Periphery's the best modern metal band right now.
Yeah, you had me check them out the other day, and I was listening to them, and I watched their music videos, and those guys are kind of weird.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I like the sound of their music.
It's some of the most high quality audio engineering ever. Like it's Misha Mansour, he's the guitarist and their engineer. He's just an amazing mixer.
Yeah.
He's just
and it's great that they're doing it like they're the ones doing it. You know, they're not
it's all in a bedroom.
Playing music and sending it out, to be fixed. They do it. So it's their music. It kind of reminds me of like Rob Zombie and how controlling he was of his own music.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, Periphery is just so, I like listening to Periphery because it's loud and fun, right? Like Five Finger Death Punch is loud, but I get tired. I don't really get tired of Periphery. You know what I mean? There's a lot of technicality that's happening with Periphery that's every time I listen to it, I'm just like, oh, there's a new thing. Five Finger Death Punch, I listened to a song twice and I was like, yep, exact same song.
Yeah, their first album was definitely like that. Their first album was very driving though. You know, like it pushed forward a lot. It was like that woke me up. And then their other albums kind of actually turned me off to them a little bit because they started changing. I don't know. Maybe I'm just I'm like an old man. I'm stuck in my ways. Like I want my music how I remember it from being a kid.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I want my music to change.
That's what I listen to.
Which is funny for a lot of reasons. All right. Well, enough metal talk. I think the rest of this episode can be spent talking about Patreon. Patreon. So Patreon's a thing.
That threw me for a loop.
Yeah. Man, Patreon. All right. Patreon did a thing this week that's questionable depending on how you look at it. For sure. It's controversial for sure. That's a thing.
It's controversial for sure, yes.
So Patreon, if you guys don't know, is a website where you can donate money to people directly to fund their creative endeavors. It's kind of like Kickstarter, except you can pay monthly for a thing, or you can pay like every time someone uploads a video or uploads a podcast or whatever. And you get rewards for it, and it's cool. It's money from consumers directly to the content creators. There's no middleman. And in my opinion, it's volunteer it's volunteer. Like, it's not like, oh, I won't be able to watch this if I don't pay you. It's no, I like your things, therefore I will pay for it. I will pay you for it. You know? I think that's the way the content creation on the internet is going to have to move forward, because with people are realizing that you can get anything you want for free on the internet. And why pay for something if I can just get another thing for free? And I think Patreon's a good middleman of, all right, fine, we'll give it to you for free, but if you like our things, you can give us money if you want. And I think that's how it should be. All right.
You get a little bit of a bonus generally, like a little here's some behind the scenes or little perks, but you definitely get to get most of the content at least for free through YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So Patreon was founded by a boy named Jack Conte. I've been following Jack Conte in his endeavors for many years before Patreon. He was in a band called Pomplamoose with his now wife, Natalie Dawn, and Jack Conte did his own personal music that I liked a lot. He's a very, very influential musician for me, and Pomplamoose in general. And then they made horrible financial decisions and realized, oh, we need to make money somehow. And so he's like, let me make a thing called Patreon. And there you go. Patreon's invented. And now Patreon's one of the biggest freaking websites ever. And it still blows my mind that the guy that made it was this hipster dude who played piano real good that I watched on YouTube's. So that's kind of what Patreon is and who Jack Conte is, the creator of the thing. He was a content creator himself, so he knows, or like you would think he would know, how content creation works and how money should maybe go to those people. So, is that a fair assessment of what Patreon is, you think?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is. I mean, they are kind of the middleman because they get a little bit of the cut. They're a platform, but it's definitely like it's amazing. It's kind of how Twitch is for streamers. You know, you instead of watching a show and having to pay some subscription fee or whatever, you just go right to the creators in the same way. And Patreon's great because it's like everything. You can start a Patreon for whatever you want. And if people like it, they'll pay you for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this week, controversial, I will say libertarian / right-wing journalist and sometimes activist Lauren Southern, who was on Patreon, got her Patreon taken down seemingly out of nowhere. At least on her end, she didn't know it was going to be taken down. From one day it was good, and the next day it was gone. And man, the reasonings are interesting. The reasonings that Patreon has given is pretty much okay. So what Lauren Southern does pretty much is he used to be part of the Rebel.media, which is a Canadian alternative news site, very conservative, but I think fairly accurate in my opinion. Sometimes not, but usually pretty accurate. But she left for whatever reasons from that to do her own personal journalistic endeavors. She likes to go to political rallies a lot and film and take part in it and wear helmets and film things. That's kind of what she does. She's a journalist and filmographer and type of thing. But she started moving into an activist role when she's joined this identitarian movement, which I don't like identitarianism. God, what's the name of it? You just watched the videos. What's it called? The freaking Defend Europe. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something. I just watched. I don't remember now. I'm too busy listening to you and your story.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. It's okay. Lauren Southern joined Defend Europe, which is a identitarian political movement in Europe to try to prevent illegal refugees from joining Europe and taking over their culture for whatever reason. And so what they were doing, this Defend Europe people were stopping ships that were supposedly going to areas where refugees were trying to swim over on rafts, on horribly poorly made rafts to Europe from war-torn Middle Eastern countries and bad areas to try to escape that and come to Europe illegally, but trying to come over the border and do that. And the ships would come and rescue those who were overboard or rescue ships that would not make it through and bring them to Europe for safe travel. And Lauren Southern and this Defend Europe people attempted to stop a ship and succeeded, and then attempted to stop another ship, I believe, and I think also succeeded. I know for sure they stopped one, though. There's video proof of her saying that she wants to continue to stop ships in the future. Well, Patreon didn't like that, and they took away all of the Defend Europe's Patreon pages, including Lauren Southern's, for reasons Jack Conte describes as a potential loss of life, because the idea is these ships are saving people who would otherwise drown, and Lauren Southern has tried to stop this. So that's Patreon's reason for taking down Lauren Southern's thing. Lauren Southern got very mad, and for a lot of reasons. One, for not communicating really very well why and when, and not giving her an attempt to appeal to maybe prevent this from happening to her and keeping her income, because Patreon was the majority of her income. So far, Ian, please jump in if I'm describing this incorrectly.
No, it all sounds right. I mean, that's what happened.
Okay. Yeah. So what are your thoughts so far of kind of what's happening here? Because I feel like I've been talking for the last 20 minutes.
Well, so, I mean, there's, if you look into it, there's other sites that, or other Patreons that do other things like eco-terrorist kinds of things, talking about how to, sabotage train tracks for fracking gear coming in, which is also, you're tampering with train tracks. That's dangerous. There's definitely, possible loss of life. I mean, the same kind of claims. And that's where the controversy comes in, because you're going, why are you doing this to her and not to other people? And so it seems political because it's one political side versus the other, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, my thought is Patreon can do whatever they want. If they want to block content that they agree with and not, or block content that they do not agree with and allow content that they do agree with, then that's them. They can do that, right? I mean, it's a company. It's the
free American company. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes, right now, generally the right is angry about this, but in the same way that the left was more angry about the whole gay wedding cake thing. But it's literally the same case happening, right? Yes. There's really no difference.
Yeah.
The thing that is iffy is the whole, we allow free speech and this and that, and you violated these policies. And as you mentioned, there wasn't much clarity or warning. And, since then, Patreon has come out and said, we'll try to add some of these things in. But it all comes back to, it's their company. They can do what they want with it. And, even if they have these policies in place, they don't have to enforce it with people that they do agree with. And they can choose to enforce it with people they don't agree with, as in what happened here, whether it's warnings or this or that. I mean, it's a company that decided to not allow one of their customers on their service. And to me, it just seems like a business doing what has been granted to them.
I don't think anyone on the right. Okay. I think it's pretty obvious. Anyone listen to this podcast, I'm not left. But I think I haven't heard anyone on the right really say, you can't do that, Patreon. How dare you take off? I haven't heard anyone say that Patreon doesn't have the right to do this. What I've heard is people on the right would rather not see this because it's not obviously political, right? Because they do take down. They have taken down Twitter left. Huh? I'm sorry.
It's not like Twitter and Milo, which was like clear and blatant. Like, there's no question about it. This one is a little bit more subtle.
Yeah. With Twitter, it was obvious. What's the CEO of Twitter? Jack, whatever his name is, or John, whatever.
That guy. I don't know.
Worked with Leslie Jones, and they're obviously worked together to get Milo out of there because they don't like his opinions, rather than he did anything wrong, because there's no evidence that Milo did anything wrong. He does some questionable things. I like the guy. I like Milo. I have a video queued up on Chrome right now of an interview he has on his channel, because I think he's a funny boy, but he does some really bad things every once in a while. Him getting banned on Twitter was just obviously political. With the Lauren situation, it seems it's political in the sense that Patreon's view on the refugee ships is a left's view, right? The view is these ships are protecting people from potentially dying, attempting to come to European countries. That's the left's view. The right's view is these are ships that are actively trafficking foreigners illegally into the European countries. That's the right's view of it. And they're both right. They're both correct, right? Yes, these ships are definitely attempting to save people who would otherwise drown. That's the left, and the left is correct. But the right's also correct that these are illegal. These are people coming into this country illegally, crossing the border. That's also correct.
Well, so that's where I think, like put an asterisk on it, right?
Okay.
For me.
Okay.
Because the thing is, people are leaving whatever country they're coming from in a very unsafe manner, on like a raft in the middle of the ocean. Like that's an extreme measure that you take. And generally you don't do that like on a whim. Like, oh, I feel like trying to go across the ocean on a raft today. That's not.
I don't think I claimed that it was on a whim though.
And so, no, you didn't. So it's because that's that question of, well, is it a refugee, right? If it's a person who is a refugee from a refugee area, then it's, these countries, European countries, the United States, they've, made these pledges and decided, when there are refugees, then we'll bring them in. And there's a correct process. And part of that process is, well, when they come up on shore, we'll figure out what happened and then go through a due process to either send them back or allow them to stay here in refugee status, et cetera. And I think that these boats that are going out and just stopping them and going, no, I'm going to take it under my authority to ship you back. You're not going to go through the due process of deciding why you're here. We're just going to send you back regardless. Is like, that's not cool if people are trying to, save their families from their house being bombed and them all dying,
I know what you mean. It's hard to figure. The numbers aren't very reliable in these European countries because they don't put them out of how many refugees or how many people coming into these countries are refugees and how many of them are like economic migrants. How many of them are coming in just illegally, just walking up on the shore and it's like, all right, I live here now. Like those numbers aren't available because they don't publish them very, very, very often. They don't publish really any crimes that happen from illegal immigrants, like in Sweden, for example. They don't publish, like police reports they've already said, like, no, we don't say the race or ethnic origin of people who commit crimes because we don't want people to know what that is, which is, regardless of where you fall politically, that's wrong. You should say where people come from because that helps. It's definitely a complicated situation. You're right, though. It's not inherently illegal, I guess, being a refugee coming to ashore for these countries. And
that's my part is that, if they're just turning away everyone, like, nope, I found you, you're going back, means they could be, turning away people who really are in need. And, the countries have this process to set up, like, no, let them come here because they're a refugee and they need our help. And because we have the ability to help them, we want to be able to help them. Whether that's what the people of that country, right? Because there's all of the migration that's happening right now with like Syria and all of that. And a lot of people are getting mad going, no, we don't want refugees. But regardless of that, the laws of those countries are like, no, we will still do this. This is, it's still open. This is the option that we've chosen to take as a country. It's been passed in law and all that kind of stuff. And I think interfering with that is like, it's in, open waters and stuff. So it's not like
everything that Defend Europe has done is in maritime law. Like everything they've done is completely legal. They haven't done anything. Defend Europe hasn't done anything illegal. They've done everything in the legal boundaries. Like, and on their websites, they've stated like their goal isn't just to stop people from coming in the country. Their goal is also, if they were going to go closer to these shores of these countries where people are leaving and see, all right, these people, if they see people drowning, they'll pick them up and then take them back to their country of origin rather than what these ships are doing and just taking them back to Europe. So Defend Europe was also going to save lives. They were just sending them back to, well, arguably save lives, but they were just going to take them back to their country of origin rather than to Europe, which is what Defend Europe's stated goal was. That was their manifest. What was it? Observable manifest behavior or manifest observable behavior. That was Jack Conte's favorite quote from his response to Lauren Southern. He kept saying manifest observable behavior, which got annoying after he said it over and over again. But I don't know how I feel about it because it's hard to not think of this as political. like I said, because I still think what Patreon has said is mostly through the blue lens, you know?
Yeah,
can you at least agree with that? Like their assessment on what
I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
But I mean, like for me, again, that's their choice, you know, that just like Twitter banning Milo, that's their choice. That's their company. They get to do that. That's, you know, that's
it's not like
that's their right.
It's not like Berkeley banning Milo, you know, or banning
I mean,
culture.
even that.
No, because that's a public school.
More controversial.
Huh?
Yes. I mean, so the thing is they came down to, this is a safety concern, right? And it's the same crap that you're going to have everywhere. Because if you have Patreon, they go, this was because of the potential loss of life. Twitter is saying, no, this is harassment, etc. But anywhere you go, places always choose what to enforce and what not to enforce. So like, technically it's on the books, so they could enforce if they want to. Most of the time they don't, but they don't particularly like this person. So then they throw the book at him and get him kicked. Same thing happens everywhere.
Yeah.
The difference, it happens everywhere.
The difference with the Berkeley thing and just public schools in general is that they're taxpayer funded and they're government entities. And so they have to, by law, uphold the First Amendment of letting people speak. They legally cannot stop Milo from coming to these schools. Actually, they have more legal precedent to help him speak more than anything else than to push him away. Which is different than what Patreon is doing, because Patreon is not a government entity. They have the right to put anyone they want away, not like these schools do. I don't think.
Well, I mean, it's not like Berkeley is, the model, school to look at. They've had a lot of issues other than just the Milo thing.
Well, it used to be. That's the thing about Berkeley, man. Berkeley used to be the model of what to look for. They were like in the middle of the civil rights stuff and doing a lot of cool stuff back in the 60s. Then they got infected with the postmodernists and everything went to hell.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I see to a degree why they made the decision, because there was rioting. Like there was violence outside of Berkeley because of Milo potentially speaking. And then like, no, this isn't safe. We cannot keep you safe. And from their point of view, because you would have your own officers and faculty and students there, and you have to think of their safety as well. Like, Milo could be like, no, I will brave the crowds to go and speak. But if that riot got really bad and they came inside, they could be destroying property. They could be hurting the faculty. They could be hurting other students.
Well, they were. That's the thing. They were. And there's.
But like, it could have gotten way worse. And so
for sure,
I see.
It could have gotten worse, even though they already set their school on fire. They were throwing bricks through windows. They were pepper spraying people with fake MAGA hats, which was hilarious. In the worst way. Again, was like that chick. You saw the video, right? Of the Antifa guy pepper spraying. The chick was wearing a "Make Bitcoin Great Again" hat, not "Make America Great Again" hat. Like he wasn't.
Yes.
It's just like, really, man. People like hitting people with bike locks.
Well, I mean, so for the case of that lady, like that's because she was trolling, right? That hat's a troll hat.
She doesn't deserve to get pepper sprayed in the face, man.
No, she doesn't. I agree, but it's just like trolls. Like sometimes there's a person and they're going to be trolling, and someone's not going to take it that way, and they're going to get hurt because of it. It's kind of like you don't put your hand on a hot skillet because you know that it's hot.
Yeah.
You can, but you probably shouldn't. Same thing kind of with trolling. Like you do have your First Amendment right, but sometimes if you say or do the wrong thing, other people aren't going to like it and they're going to hurt you because of it. Not that it's right, but that it's going to like you run that risk.
Yeah, you're right, but I think you're kind of blaming the victim a little bit. I think I'd rather put more blame on the person who pepper sprayed way before I put the person who wore the hat.
100% put that blame on that person. I don't, I'm not blaming the victim, but I'm saying like it's like people who ride motorcycles on the road. Like, yes, if you get in a crash, you're much more likely to die. You're taking that risk. It shouldn't ever happen. Drivers should always, not merge into your lane and squish you between, that car and a semi.
Yeah.
But there's that risk. Same thing with that, that she took a risk and a bad thing happened because of that. Not her fault, but she was taking a known risk when she did that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay, well, we have a couple minutes here. So I guess finishing on the Patreon thing, I don't know what's going to happen. Patreon's obviously a left company. They're funded by left groups. They have openly supported Antifa and other extreme far left anarchists, which is still funny to me, but like left anarchy groups that say they're doing good things, but they're openly not. That's just a fact. So this kind of stuff is going to happen. Like the world that Patreon sees is going to be in the eyes of the left. But they do try to be fairly objective, right? Like the manifest observable behavior thing makes sense. They want to see, okay, well, Lauren Southern did say in those videos, go here, go there, go in front of the boats, stop them, and then successfully did it. Like it looked in the video, if you just look at the facts, it looks like she was in charge of that operation, right? And so if their opinion is this will cause loss of life, this Lauren Southern was kind of leading it. So therefore, she should be banned. Like the problem that I have is saying that this will cause loss of life, I think is biased, and I think Patreon should be more careful and be a little bit more two-sided at least when making these kinds of decisions, because this can get out of hand. I don't know if it will. I hope it doesn't, because Patreon's awesome. Like I said, I like Jack Conte. I like the idea of Patreon. I like what it does to creators like EloTalk. But I'm afraid of it getting out of hand. It's happened before with a lot of companies. And it will keep happening for sure. The right tends to be more free speech centered than the left right now, at least.
Kind of.
No,
I mean,
not like, kind of.
Okay, well, so this is the thing I've been thinking about recently, because like with the Twitter thing, they were very mad at Twitter, but that is...
And we're back. Pro Tools sucks. All right. Keep going. What are you saying?
Okay, so what I was saying is that it's kind of like free speech, right? They're like, Twitter banned Milo. Well, that's their right. That's their platform, and they chose to silence that. They, free speech goes both ways. You also have the ability to, not speak up if you don't want to. And since that's their platform, they chose that, and the right got really pissed. And it does go both ways. Both sides get pissed. I mean, the left definitely gets pissed when, their things get silenced, but people get pissed on the right when the left does the same thing that the right does, but it's in their platform.
I haven't seen the problem is I haven't seen the right silence anyone. Like the right doesn't really own sites like Twitter. Like all these social media sites, these are owned by left people, and they're the ones that are in the power right now, at least in the media.
Yeah, people on the right are trying to present their platform or their content on a left-leaning platform.
Yes.
And they're getting silenced for it. But like I said, like what I was trying to say is that silence is also their free speech, right?
No,
Twitter has
I disagree
the
with
right
that,
to not...
Well, they have the right, but I don't see that as free speech, though. Like,
how is that? If they go, I don't want this to be on my... Like, if I own this, my free speech is that the things that I want said are said, and the things I don't want said aren't said, then that's... if it's mine and my platform, then that should be my right. I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't be forced to allow someone else to say things on my platform that I don't agree with. I should be able to go, no. My free speech is to not say those things.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I also think that if you stop someone else from freely speaking, you're stopping their free speech. It might be.
Well, it's not that they're keeping.
Yeah, they are. It is though. It's keeping them from saying things on their platform.
They can say and do those things, just not on their platform.
I'm not. I don't. Like I'm not saying what Twitter, like for example, like what Twitter did to Milo. That's not illegal. They have every legal right to do what they did, but they did stop his speech. It wasn't. I guess it's not necessarily free speech because it's on their website, but they did stop his speech at least. Like it wasn't.
They didn't stop his speech. They just didn't give him. They took away the microphone that was theirs. He's still allowed to say all those things.
Yeah, just no one can hear him now.
Wants.
Yeah,
they just didn't give him the platform to do it. Not that if Milo had the means, he could start up his own version of Twitter, and there you go. He could reach the same audience and everything. It's just that Twitter went, no, you don't get to talk to my audience.
Yeah, exactly.
He can still say and do all the things that he wants.
Well, I know, but just not on Twitter. I'm saying what Twitter did. They stopped Milo's speech on. Oh God. What was that? I think your phone just vibrated.
My phone went crazy.
Yeah. What Twitter did was stop Milo's speech on their own website, right? Which is legal. They have every right to do that. But I feel like some people, they're not taking into account, like, yes, they have the right to do that, but it is stopping his speech on their platform.
I don't know.
Like
on their platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
With the caveat of, yes, on their platform. But they did stop him from speaking. And I don't like just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right? Like, I don't think that what they did was morally correct. And that's what I see happening a lot right now. And I think this Patreon thing brings that up. Maybe the Patreon thing I don't think is an example, like a perfect example of this, but it's just bringing up the broader context of what can people do and say, right? Just the culture, on the culture level, right? Maybe not on the legal level, but on the culture level, what are we going to allow, right?
Well, we saw the same thing happen with YouTube. I mean, it's happening all over the creative space right now. It really is. I mean, it's everywhere, mm-hmm. And it's definitely that, it's left-leaning platforms, and people are putting their content on there they don't agree with, and it gets shut down or demonetized or what have you. But I mean, you don't go on those platforms.
I don't like that
Make
argument.
Your own platform.
Well, I don't like that
argument. He made his own platform. He went, my own Patreon. There you go. Patreon doesn't have to be the answer. YouTube doesn't have to be the answer. Twitter doesn't have to be the answer.
I know, but I don't want to. All right, we're back. I broke it. I fixed it. I talked about this on the EloTalk episode about the YouTube thing, where, okay, quoting Andrew Breitbart, who, whatever. I don't like Breitbart, but Andrew Breitbart, as the human, was a smart guy. And he says, politics is downstream from culture. There's no point in even talking about policy before you talk about the culture. And right now, the culture is, if we disagree with you, you don't get to speak on my platform. That's the culture right now. That's not the policy. That's the culture. And the problem is that if that influence sites like YouTube and Twitter and Patreon have an audience that are young, politically minded people who will one day grow up to enforce policies. And if their minds are changed by the culture that is, hey, don't say this, they're going to make policies that is then going to make it legal. You see this happening in Canada with Bill C-16 and M-103. Mm-hmm. It's force speech and prevent speech for quote unquote Islamophobia. Super, super subjective terms, very vague written wording in these bills and motions. And it's causing a lot of free speech controversy because of it. And I fear that happening here. We're seeing it happening in New York because the conservatives are too weak to stand up and say, hey, I don't want to go to jail for misgendering someone. So I kind of lost my point there. My point mainly is just the culture of YouTube, I think, is important. And yes, they have the right to do it, but we have to stand up for it because we have to stand up against it because it's not right. What they're doing isn't it's not good.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense, the policy being downstream from culture, but that's like really policy is in place to protect culture and emphasize the good things and get rid of the bad things, and it's based on what people see as good and bad. Good and bad is subjective, right?
I think that's a fundamental difference between the left and the right. I'm just gonna space on this conversation. It sounds like you're more left than I am, at least. The left tends.
I'm pretty central, for the most part.
Yeah. I'm left, more left than I am. Exactly. Center is left, more left than I am.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Just the left. I'm not putting you in this category, but just the left mindset usually is policy should affect culture, and the right mindset of culture should affect politics, right? There's a difference, and there's a completely different way they see the world. Of the left likes the policy end, it's like, hey, let's stop people from being racist. Let's stop people from being homophobic, and we have to put these in place legally. The right will say, no, let's try to affect families and have families grow up, like raise their children to not think these things, and affect it from a cultural perspective rather than a legal perspective. And both of them are correct things. They're both helpful, possibly. It's just right now, since the left controls a lot of the media and like multimedia and entertainment business right now, the narrative is the policies have to change the culture, and that's not what everyone agrees with. At least I don't. That makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense. It's just that in the United States, we have this big us versus them like culture. Like that's
yes.
I mean, that's how our politics are made. It's us versus them. That's
yeah.
And it's permeated throughout. And I think that started with policy, and it's just permeated out into culture as well. It's where it's a very big us versus them. I mean, you look at how our laws are passed, and they'll disagree on a bill just because it's from the other side, even though it's a good bill. And you're like, oh, that's kind of wrong. And I think that's trickled down into how people are as well. You have people who, they're on the right and they hate everyone on the left, and everyone on the left is dumb and this and that, and they're ruining the world. And you have the same thing on the left, right? Everyone on the right is bad and evil, and they're ruining the world. And I mean, it's not ever going to be able to be fixed the way that we're going, because nothing is helping it. Everything's just making it worse.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I disagree with the premise that policy changes culture, though. Like, I mean, it does, but I don't think that's where it started. Jordan Peterson is doing excellent research on this that is going to be coming out fairly soon, of the temperamental, psychological differences between politically right and politically left people. People on the left tend to be higher in agreeableness and lower in conscientiousness, while people on the right are higher in conscientiousness and lower in agreeableness. And there is a biological component to this, and people on the left have a opposite temperament than people on the right. Like from a brain, like from a psychological perspective, like there is a physical difference, like a mental difference between the two sides. That I think has nothing to do, and you can see this cross-culturally over time. The differences between these, like the big 5 personality traits, for example, like you can see the differences in people, and that existed way before policy was a thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my opinion, it's not policy as much as just the way it's set up, right? We have a 2-party system, and so there is only one of 2 options, us versus them. And that's what I mean. Not as much as that the policy is directed, the cultural aspect, as much as just like from the get-go, the way we're taught how people and agreement, because that's what government is, right? Mm-hmm. It's people agreeing on things. We agree to make this law or that law, and we're taught from the very beginning, okay, well, it's either option A or B, and there's no in between. There's no alternative idea. It's my way or the highway. That's it. And when you grow up with that, you see that in all of your politics. I mean, even down to like city level.
It's so funny though, because I think it's hearing you talk is literally the exact opposite way I think. I don't see it from top to bottom. I see it bottom up. I see the city level affecting the state level, and the state level affecting the federal level. Like you just said, the other way around. That's not how I see it.
Yeah.
I think it's families affecting the culture, and the culture affecting, you know what I mean? Like I said, I think it's all we see things opposite. Interesting.
Interesting. Well, like case in point.
Yeah. Yeah. But my whole thing is I don't think one side is wrong or right always, right? I just think right now, the majority, I think there's a lot of things on the left that scare me. There's some things on the right that scare me. I don't like the identitarian movement that's happening in Europe. I don't like it's slightly racist, and I'm afraid of it.
It's not just in Europe.
No, well, it's not just in Europe, but I'm saying it kind of started there.
Yeah, I mean, It's existed for a long time in the United States too. It's just, instead of Middle Eastern countries, it's South American countries and Mexico.
Sure, but it was never a movement. It was never like we have a symbol, like we have a specific symbol that's for protecting European culture, right? Like,
I mean, that's kind of what the Klan is in the United States, and they've been around for a
but it was more race than it was. Klan was more of just like white people, protect white people rather than protect American people. There's a difference. See, what the identitarian movement is, it's hyper nationalistic, which isn't racist.
Yes.
There's a difference. It's not. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with culture. It's they want to protect their. It just happens. It just happens that that's why I'm saying it moves into racism, because it just so happens that a lot of different races have different culture. So if they want to keep their culture, you're going to end up keeping out race, and that's why I don't like the identitarian movement. It's a identity politics thing. I don't like it on the left. I don't like it on the right. I don't like it when people say you're black, therefore this. And the left does that, and the right does that, and since I personally have opinions that tend to fall on the right, I don't like calling myself a conservative or calling myself a Republican. It's just my opinions happen to fall on that side. When I see what happens to be my side do the things I don't like on quote unquote the other side, I get very sad. It's like, no, I thought I had friends over here. God dang it. And you're right though. I wish we had more parties like libertarian. Man, Gary Johnson really, really screwed things up. Did he? Yeah, he had a chance. He had a chance to make another opinion out there, but boy, what
all of our politics has been a mess. I mean,
it's all a bunch of garbage. Trump's a silly boy. Hillary's a silly boy. Everyone's a silly boy. And it's all a bunch of garbage. No matter where you fall politically, it's all frustrating.
There's like the one thing that everybody can agree on, and that's just stuff is broken.
Yeah, everything's broken. Tonight, I'm going to be... All right, well, I think we can end it there. We've been going on for a little bit long. But yeah, tonight I'm going to be watching a debate with Ben Shapiro and Cenk Uygur. So that's going to be fun.
Interesting.
If you guys don't know, Cenk Uygur is the head of the Young Turks. He's a big sweaty water buffalo at the Young Turks. And then Ben Shapiro is a small Jew for the Daily Wire. And so big water buffalo versus small Jew. It'll be very interesting. So I suggest watch that if you like politics stuff. If not, go watch anything else, because politics is stupid.
Anything other than that.
Yeah. If you don't like water buffaloes versus Jews, then watch anything else. So this has been fun. You're a fun boy, Ian.
Thank you. You're pretty fun too.
You're a smart guy. Yeah. We should like have
make it even bigger.
we should have like politics talks like off podcast, because I feel like we could do this forever.
I can do that, except probably not while I'm at work, because I should probably do work things while I'm at work. But I agree.
Just quit. All right. So tell people where they can find you, and they can find EloTalk and do cool things over there.
You don't want to find me because I'm boring.
Right.
I said at the beginning, I am boring. But EloTalk is very fun and entertaining. You can go to the website, elotalk.com. And you can check out all kinds of nerdish content, all kinds of things there, podcasts, articles, a direct link to our Discord. It's open to everybody. Come in and, chat and find some pretty cool people who do some pretty cool things.
I'm there.
They're also on. You're there. You are there. Yeah. I'm there. I don't talk very much, but I'm there.
Yeah, I'm there, and I get in trouble every time I bring up politics. It's really funny to see, because Peter's always just like, hey, don't do that. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I know.
Mellow out a little bit over there.
Yeah. I always get in trouble. But it's all fun.
They're
We're all
for
a bunch of...
Not politics.
Huh?
But, so they're there for games, not politics.
Exactly. Yeah. Video games, Game of Thrones. Yeah, everyone talks about Final Fantasy over there, and it's really annoying. But if you like Final Fantasy, you can go there.
If you like Final Fantasy 14, it is the spot to be.
And if you don't, go to the other channels, because
And even
if you're on the other channels, you're going to hear some Final Fantasy talk, because that's how that works. But I like all you guys. I'm very happy to be part of this team, because you guys put up with me, and that's always fun. Sometimes.
It's fun to have you aboard.
Yay. Yeah, you can find us, I guess. I know the thing. Follow. What is it? I say this every week. 100 episodes.
You got
guys.
this.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts because it used to be called iTunes, but now it's just Apple Podcasts. Or you can find us the last episode there. Rate and review there. Google Play Music. The last episode there. Instagram at the last episode podcast. Twitter at lastcast. Nope, that's not it. Instagram. Jesus Christ. Instagram at the last episode podcast. Twitter at last episode pod. Ask us questions. lastcastask@gmail.com. And you can follow me on the internet. Awesome MGY. I will be doing YouTube videos soon. If you like politics, I will be doing that soon because I have a new camera. That'll be fun. First video is written.
YouTube.
Huh?
Political YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be more how to live rather than what is the world, if that makes sense. I don't think it'll be interesting. It kind of bridges the gap between like...
Check it out to see.
Yeah, I think it'll bridge the gap between like a Jordan Peterson and then just like politics. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time because I lay awake at night thinking about these things and have no one to talk to. So I have a computer and a phone, and I will talk to you that. And if you want to watch, cool. If not, I don't care. This is for me, not for you. I hate you. I'm kidding. I love you. Bye.